Good morning, happy Sunday to everyone. Just wanted to introduce ourselves. This is the Monte, Rosa and Streetgeek podcast for Best Blog About. We're going to get into it in a little bit of time, but yeah, man, it's been a very hot weekend, and yeah, we're going to get into some subjects today, Monte. How you doing?
Morning, Streets. Yeah, man, I'm good. Been a long time coming, so yeah, it's good to be here, and we're gonna chop it up nice and thin today.
Can you believe it's our first ever podcast, bro? And we've been, obviously, we had a hard project campaign when it came to building up our website. People can catch that on www.bestblogabout.com. There's a lot of content on there, but now we've kind of like moved over into more of the YouTube content world now, and we're seeing a lot of stuff, man. We're seeing a lot of stuff about the culture, but yeah, let's introduce ourselves first, man, before we properly get into it, man.
Yeah, Monte Rosa, man. I'm just there in it. Born Caribbean heritage, West London. Grew up in a place called Acton, and yeah, man, I just we met through music, my father had a steel band, and yeah, man, we just been cool ever since. I'm just into my sports, my music, various aspects of the culture, and not just that, I'm a worldly guy as well, man. I like to learn new things, but yeah, man, that's kind of me.
Yeah, man, I've been seeing, obviously, you've been traveling, doing your recent travels and stuff, and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, as a collective, I say both of us, we both grew up in the West London area. We know the West London area very well. We've known each other for a very, very long time. When obviously we have a lot of things that bring us together in terms of the music, the football,
yeah,
but not just that, family, friends, and just the way we are. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, in terms of like our career paths, and all that kind of stuff as well. So we're trying to build something together. It's been tough, no doubt. The first year, getting to know how to build a brand has been difficult, but I think it's slowly coming together. We're starting to build up our content, and as today. You know, I wouldn't even believe that we'd be doing a pod right now. So yeah, I'm ready to get into it. I'm ready to tackle the big question, bro.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, you're right. You know, when we started doing this, there's no way I would have thought about a podcast. I didn't even think that was possible. We was just grinding every day on the site, trying to actually come up with content and learning, you know, behind the scenes and the back end and all of that. But yeah, that's when, like you said, the professional careers and stuff really helped. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this because it's kind of like we're always talking about certain topics, and this one keeps coming up. You know, we're always talking about, you know, the culture and what is the culture, you know, and it's a perfect kind of idea to have a discussion on, because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of I don't know if is it just me, Streets, like the last 2 to 3 months, it's like things have just got hectic on the culture space and on the podcast.
Bro, it's, do you know what? I'll be honest with you, yeah. I can't keep up with everything right now because it's just crazy. But we're gonna get into that in a moment. I just wanted to say, like, just quickly, just to send a, you know, a shout out to my brother that passed away last year. Today would have been his 40th birthday, June the 22nd. So, you know, shout out to my late brother Raf. And yeah, I just wanted to just mention you on this podcast, man. I'm dedicating this podcast to you because you were very much a person that was part of the culture as well. And you know, the thing about what we're going to get into about the culture is that we also got to talk about the unsung heroes as well, because we see a lot of guys visually, you know, talking about culture, and they made such a, they're so influential, but we also got to talk about the unsung heroes as well. But anyway, let's just get into it, bro. Yeah, because you know what, we've given a nice little intro. The big question: what is the culture?
Well, the culture is everything and nothing. I mean, what I mean by that is that question makes sense, but it depends. Like, often we hear the use of this term, the culture, like, you know, the culture, you hear a lot of people in the YouTube space, you know, the podcasters use it. And for me, why I say it's nothing is because it really hasn't got any kind of definition, right? I mean, there's no noun in front of the word culture, you know. If I put a noun between the, i.e. the football culture, you kind of know what it is. But the culture, to me, like I said, it's everything, but it's nothing because it's not clearly defined. And I find a lot of people in the industry, like I used to work a little bit in the music industry, and people used to talk about the culture a lot because you can bring everything into it and no one feels like they're not part of it. Because it's like, remember 20 years ago, everybody's talking about urban.
Yeah.
No one talks about that no more. It's now the culture. Because even people who weren't urban didn't feel part of that. Whereas the culture, everybody could come in. But I think the culture definitely has a root, you know what I mean? It has a core. And for me, when we're looking at the podcast space, we see like the background of a lot of these people, the environments they grow up in, the fact that a lot of them are ex-music people. They're either, you know, spitting bars, MCs, you know, music moguls or manager, label, managers. Some of them come from a tough environment where they was on the streets, and then you got their heritage as well. And that's the kind of areas I think kind of define what is the culture. But as I said, it isn't really defined. But what's your take on it? Because I just feel like whenever I hear it, there's elements that naturally I feel I'm part of, but there's elements that I'm not. So what's your take on the definition of the word culture? Or what is the culture?
You know what? I must admit, I'm still trying to work out the definition, but how I understand it, culture is, I'm just gonna just stick to specifically black culture right now. Okay, London black culture, because that's what I am, right? And that's what you are, right? We're black guys, yeah? So the food we eat, that's part of our culture, you know, the Caribbean food, obviously the rotis and the curry chicken and all that. The food is different to other cultures, yeah, of other nations. Caribbean, we do things a certain way, isn't it? Like you have the pardoner, like the families bringing the pardoner and all that kind of stuff. A lot of us are family centric as well. So we used to have the grandparents as a hub, grandma. Do you know what I'm saying? She's the hub. Everyone will go there. Yeah, everyone will go there. I'm just talking about from the family side right now. I've not even gone into the other side of like the raving and the hip hop culture and all of that side. I'm just talking about from a basic point of view about the family side. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because growing up in the UK or London specifically, it was tough. For our parents, the Windrush generation, etc. And even when we grew up as well, although it was slightly easier, we did see elements of stuff, racism, etc. But in terms of culture as well, I think it boils down to our fashion, the way we wore our clothes, the music we listened to, and people kind of like bought into our culture. Many people today, they love our culture. They love embracing our culture. They love going to the countries that our parents originated from. But there's this other element now of gang culture, which is glorified, unfortunately, in our culture. It's not something that our parents would have been proud of, to be honest, but it's there, and it's something that we have to touch on. So we know that these podcasters now, we know the likes of Young Spray, Gigs, all of these guys, yeah, these hip hop rappers and stuff, yeah, are very influential on the youngsters, or the young black men, young black women of today now. And they're very, how can I put it? They're very successful in what they're doing. And I've only mentioned two people here, so that's what I kind of get in terms of the culture thing, but I'm sure it's much deeper than that.
You touched upon something there, basically talking about family, so background, right? And everybody's background is a bit different, but you mentioned Caribbean culture, like the structure, like how the Windrush generation, it was usually our grandparents that came over, and then they had children or brought their kids really young, and then they had children, like our generation, and now our generation is having children, and then soon there's going to be a fifth generation, right? But through all these different levels, the background, the family background, the Caribbean gets, I don't want to use the word diluted, but other elements come into it. So like your environment, where you live, you might have grown up in an area where there was loads of people from similar background, or there wasn't. Because like me, when I grew up, there was quite a few, but I actually grew up living above racists. Like they used to chuck stones at my windows and smash my windows and smash the door and have stickers and NF on the door all the time. And something happened between my dad and them, and it went to court and we had to move. And then we moved to the other place where you know me from.
Yeah.
But like the other place now, it's kind of the same. There's less integration. There's less culture where I live now, but
wow,
closer to certain areas like Halsden. You know what I mean? Where I was before, I was closer to Ealing. So that's always been a good thing. I'm closer to Bush, I'm closer to Grove. So the actual area I live in it's different now, but when I moved there, it was different. But how like our environments now, because you mentioned like our background, but then you've got like I think of certain areas, like you've got African migration to this country from the 1990s is being really huge, whether it's West Africans or East Africans, but you've got a lot of North Africans as well in like places like Ladbroke Grove, and we kind of all grew up together. And then you've got other types of people that have come into the culture as well on the street tip, you know. So we're all growing up to each other, and like you said about certain things, gangs, like this is now kind of projected as the culture, because you can't do it by background as much. Do you know what I mean? Because you'll leave certain people out. Certain people feel away. Or maybe it just wasn't like that. If you grew up, I don't know, I always look at Peckham. Peckham, you just got loads of different types of people, but there's a foundation. Yeah. And you know, you've got loads of like, I don't know, people from different parts of Africa there. You had the foundation of Jamaicans or Caribbeans. I mean, you're a man that knows that area well, right? So you got different people now gravitating to that and want to be part of it. But they've got something where other areas, it's just different. You know what I mean? It's just loads of different sort of people coming in. But I want to say something as well about the people now who are kind of like the face of the culture. In terms of like podcasters, musicians, there's also TV personalities, there's also influencers. Yeah. It's kind of a mixed bag, isn't it? Because I was looking at certain people, I was looking at this thing, you know, you've got like the Sidemen and what's this border league and stuff like that. That's very much part of the culture, but it's so broad. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because it's not just football, it's definitely pointing to the culture, but it's not just a one type of thing. So what do you think about that?
Oh, it's a good point. It's a good point. No, I see. Obviously, we're football guys, isn't it? Excuse me. We're football guys, so you know we love all of that. We love all of that, especially if we see youngsters, maybe around our ages or maybe younger, talking on football. I would say they're quite influential in a positive manner, because we have to remember that some of these guys, you know, have come from like, I wouldn't say poor backgrounds, but you know, it's been tough working class backgrounds, and they've made a name for themselves on, you know, in that space. So I kind of rate what they're doing in terms of like being influential for the culture, because not all culture has to be influenced negatively. You know, we can have positivity within this space. One thing that I've never understood growing up in terms of culture is the Caribbean versus, you know, Africa, kind of like, there's like a stigma there where, you know, we make fun of them, they make fun of us. I find it funny, but I find it weird at the same time. Like on that podcast I was listening to for Bionic Steve, he was like talking about Justo saying blood clot, and why is he saying blood clot? Why can't you say it? Blah blah, and all these kind of stuff. There's definitely some kind of like, I wouldn't say hate towards Africans from the Caribbeans, but there's definitely some kind of, I don't know if I'm right to say, competition going on. But if someone's influenced by your culture, is that not a good thing?
For real. I mean, culture is meant to be shared, right? That's how I look at it, right? I'm not saying it's meant to be shared to be taken over and owned, but it's meant to be shared, and it's complementary when someone, like you mentioned, food. So you could have like a West Indian restaurant and loads of people go and visit it online. They start, you know, doing little YouTube or little Instagrams, taking pictures, sharing it from all different parts of the country, all different backgrounds. That's good. That's what you're meant. You want people to know about your culture. You want people to know about your food and the quality of it. And I just see it as like that. Like if people are coming to us, or shouldn't say us, to Caribbean people and taking bits of our culture, that's fine, because don't we do that? You know, at the end of the day, have we not taken bits from America or from Britain or from different cultures, from Africa? You know, a lot of us are from Africa. But, you know, I knew a guy, he grew up in Lewisham, and he went to school, and it was just bare Caribbean kids, and he just got teased and bullied for the first 2 years of secondary school. And then he started to get punched up a bit, and around 13, 14, he started to grow. And he told me, he said, I used to look at this guy who was like the leader of the pack, and I thought I could beat him up. And like, he punched him, and he punched him back. Everybody was like, right, he actually hit him back. And then he finished him. And he said from that day, no one tested him. And then the older boys saw him, and then they was like, oh, you're kind of strong, because this guy who used to bully him he didn't know he was part of a gang. And they thought, this guy's kind of strong, and they recruited him. Right, so they started to show him love. So it goes to show how messed up that thing is, because he's literally fighting for his respect, but because he's put on a bit of size now, and he's not having it no more, and he punched someone up, then the older boys are like, nah, you need to roll with us. And he didn't really know it. He was getting groomed. Do you know what I mean? He didn't really see it, but that's a separate point. But the competition thing, I saw that podcast, and like, I'm like, my man needs to get the update. You know what I mean? Download the update, because, you know, if someone wants to use a word, why not? You know, at the end of the day, it's a word. There's everything comes out of your mouth, authentic Jamaican. You know, I hear loads of people on TV use this term, big up. Don't you know? Do you ever go at them? Are you mad at them for saying that? Because
everyone says that. Everyone says that now. I see English people using that on streams.
In my where I work, they have like something for the month, and it's not where I work, it's where I used to work. They have like, we have like a monthly meeting, and let's say it's like star performers for the month. They'll say, Streets, big up, because I'm like, what? And this is some like posh white guy. You know, he's just like, let's give Rosa big ups, because she did this well, and she went beyond expectation. You know what I mean? She worked hard, and big up Mark, because we had an outage and he worked all night. And I'm thinking, these are the sort of people that, if they have to get the train back to work, back home, they won't want to sit next to someone like me. In fact, sometimes I've seen them on my carriage, and it's like, I'm not talking to him. You know what I mean? Like, he's not relevant anymore. You know, not that I'm begging, friend, but I'm like, okay, you know, but I don't work for that company anymore. But that's how it used to be. So everybody's using that. So why are you mad at one type of people now? I just thought, you're going back in time, man. And it wasn't such a thing in West, to be honest with you, because we didn't have a lot of we had like the odd, in my area, we had the odd couple, but we was all love at school. We didn't have loads of them. We didn't have like loads of Nigerians or Ghanaians. We just had one or two, and they're still all good friends to this day. It wasn't such a thing, but I think South and East, it might have been more a thing. But
your school was strict, bro. Your school was strict. You couldn't even get like a you know what I mean, a fade before like the headmasters like making noise about it, bro. You know, even my nephew went to your school, and like, when he had a little fade and that, they was like, no, you can't, you're suspended and all that kind of madness. I never experienced that in school. In school, I was getting patterns and everything. Teacher was taking picture of my head and all that. You know what I'm saying? See the difference, the big difference is obviously errors as well, of where you're brought up as well. Because obviously, if the audience can hear me and you talking, obviously you sound very kind of like well spoken, you know, and you've got that nice kind of tone. Me, you can hear it. I've got a bit of both, isn't it? I've got a bit of that street kind of talk, but also I can kind of like mix it up a little bit as well. So I want to go back to a point that you made about being on the train, and this is all to do with culture and stuff like that. Yeah. So for me, if someone was sitting next to you and say, for example, you ask them the time, I could instantly, you know, hear what you're saying in terms of like, you don't sound like one of them hood guys. You know what I mean? Because of the way you portray yourself, because of the way you speak. And this is the thing with culture as well. Not everyone is the same. Yeah. So not every black person, yeah, you know, has got a grill in their mouth, wears a gold chaps, wears a gold chain. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, drives a BMW. There's different elements to our culture. You know, obviously, me and you talking today. You know, both of us. You know, we've worked hard to where we've got today. You know, we've both been educated. We both want a lot in life, in terms of being successful with our current business and our blog at the moment as well. Excuse me. We're both, you know what I mean, working towards our goals, whether it be outside the business, you know, traveling, all of this kind of stuff as well. So there are different elements to our culture, and it's not just you know, it's all gang culture. And you know, because looking from the outside in, you know, a lot of these guys might watch these podcasts, yeah, and think it's all these guys ever talk about is and all of this kind of stuff. Yeah, I've done this, I've done that. The other day, someone was talking on one of the podcasts about the bloggers. I think actually Gigs referenced this actually about, you know, bloggers. He made reference to bloggers about in a negative light, that, you know, they're snitching and they're talking about. But to be honest, you guys are already talking about it anyway. You guys have already been glorifying what you've been doing and all this kind of stuff in your rap music. Yeah, we're just talking about it. Yeah, so that's not something that you can come and, you know, have a go at us. And that's where I wanted to segue with you about this, because you introduced me, and do you know what? Yeah, I'm showing my lack of knowledge here. You introduced me to someone called Trapper Ross. I've watched his videos, but I never really ever paid attention to his name or anything like that, or ever seen him. He was on a pod the other day, and Chronic was literally going at him and saying, "Do you know what? Yeah, you've come into our culture. Yeah, you're like a you're like a Fed in our culture." Um, what do you think about Trapper Ross's? Can you say influence on our culture as well? Because obviously he's from outside and he's come into our culture. He's not the type of guy that you would look at and think, wow, this guy, you know, but he's actually quite knowledgeable about culture. You know, he looks a bit like Harry Potter. He's got the glasses. He's got, you know, he seems well spoken, but he seems very, you know, I don't know whether he's a plug or whatever. What do you think about Trapper Ross's influence on the culture?
Well, he's someone who, for some reason, like, wants to be looking and pointing at the culture, and people might say he's a culture vulture, because he's obviously making money from commentating. And I've looked at him because he comes up on my Snapchat, and it's kind of like the way that the channels are on Snapchat. It looks kind of like it's kind of daily, and like he puts it up there and whatnot. But he has a huge following in the United States of America. It's a Chicago drill scene, because he was one of the first people from outside of their culture to actually do these updates and follow it like a super freak fan and whatnot. And he's done the same. I've seen him in Broadwater Farm doing interviews with OFB, and
Yeah,
like he did a day where he drove around with them and went to their hood, and then they took him to the studio, took him to the restaurant. So like he's got credibility from the artists. This is the thing. So like I saw that interview, and like the thing is, he said something like, "I was a rapper. Like, I'm not from the streets, but I was a rapper." And they was like, "Really? I've never known you to be a rapper." So I saw a different interview where he said I think he's from Bognor Regis. He's not from the hood, but I think he either went to London for university or something. Look, he's a nerdy guy, right? I mean, like he hasn't got any element of the culture. But I've worked with a guy like him, and you know, my man had every hip hop magazine, every new release, every mixtape, every CD, and that was it. But you asked him to go to a club, he don't want to know. It's like he was super shook, you know, because it was kicking off at clubs back then, and obviously he's gonna stand up like a sore thumb. He can't dance. He's got no arms, so like he's just gonna look different. And even Trap Lil Rock, I mean, the way he presents himself, I saw him doing a podcast the other day. He had a bow tie on, a bow tie, his hair, you know, so he isn't trying to mock it, you know, but then he's attacking this. This is why I don't respect him, because he seems obsessed with Central C, and Central C is like you were saying before just now about gigs and the fact that he can say something about the dry snitching, but all a lot of these rappers incriminate themselves, you know, they tell their own stories, but you know, we'll get into that in a bit. But basically Central C, maybe he's taking elements, but he's trying to say he's not authentic because he hasn't lived the life. Like, why do you have to live the life? You know, this is where our culture gets misrepresented. Because why can't you be a good writer? Why can't you be a good someone who's doing what he's doing, which is making observations and then creating content? You know, in Central C's situation, he's a writer. He writes music. Why does he have to have chef someone? Why does he have to rob someone to be credible? And as far as this Trap Lil Ross is saying, nah, you're not credible because you haven't been in a gang. You haven't done it. You haven't done any of that. And that's misrepresentation of our culture, because you shouldn't have to be. But it's funny, the guys who are on like Chronics, he more or less said the same thing in a different interview. He said to Tanks, like, you didn't grow up in the streets, so you're not really part of the culture, or let me delete that, because I'm not sure if he said that, but he said something along those lines, and that's also wrong. And this is where we're getting this misrepresentation, because like you said, it's not about one angle. Yeah, maybe everybody likes that, maybe that's what sells records, or you know, it's drama, in it. People like drama when they look at our culture. That's like, you know, the housewives of Atlanta, you know, they're just wild. It's like drama. That's the sort of culture that gets pushed out there. But the culture is much more than that. You know what I mean? So Trap Lil Ross, he's in a position where he's got credibility. Yeah. If he loses,
he's also making money though from us. Though. Yeah. He's also making money from the culture as well. A lot of money.
He's making loads, because like his Snapchat revenue streams must be high. I'm pretty sure he's on Spotify. I don't know if he's got a dedicated channel on YouTube. I'm surprised.
Yes. He's got 1 million. I think he's got over 1 million subscribers. So he's definitely making money off that.
So
he's definitely making money off that.
He's talking about he's moving to LA, so he wants to be based there to sort of like probably do more podcasts there.
And he got beef with someone in LA though. Apparently he's got beef with is it a rap someone over there?
Whack. Was it Whack 100? But I'm not across that, because I don't know if you've seen him streets, but Whack 100 is like mid-50s. He's like a Suge Knight kind of guy, right? But he ain't Suge Knight. But he's like, you know, an OG.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like across everything. And if there's anything in LA, like, you know, like a Suge Knight, like he tends to be there. But he's getting into it with rappers that are probably old enough to be his grandson, you know. But he's trying to remain relevant. He's trying to, like, you know, get caught up in this. It's all monetization, but I don't really look at that content, because I'm like, I don't know the artist. I'm not really too across hip hop anymore. I don't know if it's hip hop or drill, whatever he does. But yeah, he's probably calling out Trap Lil Ross like, who do you think you are? You know, like nerdy guy. Like, he's the guy that does not exist in LA, and you're trying to maybe come in and muscle, and he's probably thinking, that this is actually my territory. You can't come in there. And if he's from the streets, well, he knows what you do with people that try and muscle in on your territory and make money. So Trap Lil Ross, he might be in for a surprise, because if he's going there on his ones, then it's not really secure. You know, you can't buy security, because at the end of the day, you don't know their background. So yeah, that's his problem. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Trap Lord Rosa. Like, I'm not gonna diss him entirely because he's got credibility and he's a journalist, right? He's not trying to be a bad man with it either.
Yeah.
He's not trying to mock, but he's exploiting the culture, and that's kind of the problem. And when people, this is why a lot of the times, like, the culture we push out there maybe isn't the best of our culture. It's easy for people in the industry to exploit it and make money and whatnot. But then it's the misrepresentation, like you said earlier. People who outside take a view just think, what's going on? What you know? Like, I saw something that happened yesterday in Harleston with JAG, right? Who's up to that point, he's like people. He where he does most of his lives is outside King's Cross, right outside where I used to work. Well, it's outside the station, really. It's about 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I used to work for a big music company there, right? And there's Google's there, and also Universal Records is there, right?
Yeah.
And he's changing the whole game when it comes to like the music industry, because he's got a platform where you could be like, I see like young girls dancing to his stuff, but they're like getting streamed and they're dancing, or he gives people a chance. There's that guy who's outside Brixton who was doing some rhymes. This tall white guy who was trending. But then he's had big names there. He had Alicia Dixon. He had Will Smith the other day, you know? So he's he's just bringing everybody in, and the music industry has to take note. And you will see people pattern what he's doing very, very soon. You'll see someone trying to do what he's doing in a different way, in a filtered way, you know, where they'll try it with a different genre or something like that, or they'll try it indoors instead of outdoors, right? You'll see that soon. Because I read a comment and they're saying like Radio 1 Extra is getting taught a lesson by DJ AG, because they're kind of not relevant anymore, not as relevant as they did, but he's able to like show how popular these artists are and bring, like, Alicia Dixon. I wouldn't have thought she could have got that crowd response, you know. And I'm not saying she was amazing, but she's obviously in a different lane now. She's like on a panel doing Britain's Got Talent. She's kind of like stepped away from being a performer, and you saw her like the traction she got, you know, it was good. So like she might even think, you know what, I've still got this. I'm still cool with the kids, you know. Will Smith, like that was interesting, and he's had bigger names. I don't always look at his stuff, but that was the first negative thing that happened associated with him yesterday.
That's another thing. Sorry, Mon. That's another thing that I wanted to pick up on as well. Why is there always like something that's negative that comes out of this? It's almost, and this goes back to certain elements of our culture where we don't like to see a next man, you know, or the next person being successful. We've always got to negate something, you know what I'm saying? You know, like, just because we're not doing as good as this person, we're always going to bring this person down. Because as far as I'm concerned, that incident that happened, I don't think it's tarnished his reputation, but from people from outside looking in, it just doesn't look good for us. And that's what I wanted to talk about as well. Programs like Top Boy, how do you think that's had an influence on our culture? Has it given a positive light, or has it given a negative light?
Well, let me come on to that in a second, because I just wanted to say something. The reason why I wanted to talk about DJ AG and Harleston is that I read one of the comments, and it was like, people are burying their heads in the sand if they can't see that there's fights everywhere in the Black community. There's fights on trains, there's fights here, there's, you know, and I'm like, there's Royal Ascot as well on a weekend, and I'm seeing white guys drink alcohol and punch each other up, and that's on video, and that's accepted. So sometimes we over dramatize, but these things can be manipulated. So what I was going to say about DJ AG, they can frame that, the Daily Express or the Daily Mail, they can put a headline around that, violence at AG thing, because some people might say, oh, they come out of King's Cross and they see like 400 people, mainly from black culture or in and around black culture, and they might feel intimidated and they might not want that, so they use it against him, But just on your point, I think that's a really good point when you segue to Top Boy. So when it first came out, I'm like, this is the last thing we need, right? Because there was a time when every film was just street, and it was just showing, because people like hip hop and they like grime and they like drill music and before that trap, because of the stories of the artists and the stories they say. And then when you get to know the artists, the stories where they've come from, it's kind of like, is it real or is it fantasy? It's like part of history, like, I don't know, cowboys and Indians, okay, it was this, but when you see it, it's like, well, it's real, but it's fantasy because maybe there wasn't that type of hero. I mean, I think they said like most of the cowboys weren't even white, you know what I mean? Most of the cowboys were African Americans, but that you never saw that when we were growing up. And you still don't see it. There's this one film that's referenced to it. But I think with the Top Boy thing now, I thought this is the last thing we need, because this is basically at a time when we're trying to like acknowledge there's a problem on the streets of London. This is glorification. I can remember the first episode. Well, Top Boys, because I stopped watching it probably. I don't think I saw all the ones on Channel 4, and I don't think I saw the last one. So yeah, I've seen most of them. But what was interesting about the first one for me was they referenced London Fields, which is a real place in Hackney. So that was like, but where they're from isn't real. So I'm like, if you're from London Fields, you got to feel like, oh, we're famous. You know what I mean? Like the whole world knows about us, And the storylines, they were okay, but like I'm like, at the end of the day, the kind of like the heroes are bad men. The heroes are guys that, are out there doing the things that we really don't want to promote as part of our culture. But some of the storylines got better. There's more thought put into them. But at the end of the day, it's a popular show. And it did highlight to a lot of people from outside of London, well, this ain't a fantasy. This is actually what these kids are doing. And some people are going to laugh at that and think, idiots, dickheads, whatever they want to call kids who walk around with crack in their mouth, or they have to, they spend all day on the block, going from point to point, getting told what to do. That's not their reality, but that's a reality for kids in certain situations. And as the series gone on, those kids were shown to be vulnerable, or the workers now, they were shown to be more vulnerable, where obviously the Top Boys are the ones that are the main characters, Sully and can't remember that other guy's name, Ashley Walters' character, but those are the guys that are the main characters. But they show like all the people at work and how they can get people underneath them to turn on each other, and some of the consequences. It did get better, but I'd still feel like there was a time when that was pushed forward, and I think there's better content we can make. Like another thing I saw, and I don't want to go away from your point too much, but Blue Story. Did you ever see that film?
Yeah. Blue Story. Yeah.
That was kind of like, it showed a real situation, obviously down south with Peckham and Lewisham, and
I like that.
Yeah.
Who's the producer again? What's his name?
I can't remember. I think it's the guy who did Rat Man, isn't it? Is it Rat Man?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
I mean, that was the way he did that with the rhymes and stuff, and brilliant. Also the story was real, because this is something that's happening. Like, I know for a fact, in Harlesden they got the same problem where you could go to school with someone, primary school, and this is all over London. You go, because it's same in Brixton, same in Hackney. You go to the same primary school, you're in the same football team, you're playing football on Sundays. You get up to the age of 14, 15, and you start noticing things, or you start getting involved in things. Yeah, you might have an older brother, and you might get told, nah, see that guy in your team, nah, like you can pass the ball to him on the pitch, but he's from that place, and you shouldn't really go there. We don't talk to them boys. You don't like them. Yeah. And then by the time they leave school now, they don't talk to each other, you know, because it's peer pressure. It's like, nah, you can't. They're cool, but you can't. So that's why I like that film, because it kind of showed the relationship they had was tight. Even though like there's family members, there's people putting pressure on them, like, do you know who I am? You know, or do you know his brother is? Then it cools off. But then like at a point, then, you know, it came to a point where everybody, people got sucked into that lifestyle. But that was a much better, because it was all about consequences, and it was all a struggle for their relationship to survive. So I like that. But yeah, Top Boy's got its good and bad points, man. I mean, I feel like it, on the one hand, it highlighted what the real reality is, because a lot of people just see a headline like, you know, murders in Hackney, and they'll be like, whatever, you know, these kids and guns and Sadiq Khan, you know, blah blah blah. That's it, and it becomes political, and they want, you know, they blame the government, or they blame the mayor of London, or they blame, you know, broken homes, but they don't actually see what it's actually like. And people need opportunities, you know. That's always the case. People need opportunities, but personally, I don't want to see another Top Boy. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather see more. Yeah, I feel like, especially like the thing about it is Drake, and people in when I go to the States, people reference it. You know, like if I go to the States, people hear my accent. Like, made a point earlier about how I speak, but when I go there, they say Top Boy. You know what I mean? They're like, that, all right, mate, or they'll do that, but then they might say, bruv. You know, now they're trying to like talk the slang that they hear maybe on Top Boy and stuff like that. So it's got international appeal. Like, didn't Drake invest in it to keep it going? Didn't he, like, when Channel 4 was going to cut it because they got a bit of heat, and then I think he invested in the production.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they managed to get a deal on Netflix. So it's, the whole world is getting to see what it's like in London, which is good and bad, because it's not the best advert for London, right? If you're a tourist, you might think, oh, better not go there. But it's letting people know this is how it is. Now, my thing about that is, is there any return? So how does this affect Hackney? How does this affect, you know, other hoods who've got this problem? Because someone's making money out of that.
Oh yeah.
But does it go back in? Because it reminds me of a point. I don't want to derail off this, because, you know, I'll let you have your say, but there's another point in terms of how the culture gets exploited and people take it back in, right? So you wouldn't be rich without the culture, but show it some love. But yeah, don't know what you think about Top Boy, because I don't think you gave your opinion.
From a media and from a viewer point of view, I thought it was brilliant. I've watched every series, and, you know, I've enjoyed it. You know, a lot of violence, but it's also touching on the reality of life in London. People fighting over postcodes, which it's sad, really, because a lot of these guys don't even own their own homes. You know, they talk about growing up in the ghetto and all of this kind of stuff, and, you know, the gangsters that, you know, they'll open a door for the old gran, but you know what, they're going to slice up someone in front of the old gran as well. If we look at Top Boy and we look at London as a whole, the reality is more clearer than you think. Only yesterday and this morning, I've just been hearing loads of ambulances just going past, or police cars going past. We know there was a point, Monte, yeah, where we were hearing about stabbings literally every day. and the stabbings were getting younger and younger. Look at the girl that recently got stabbed in Croydon. She was on her way to school with her friends, and this guy, whether he had an infatuation or he was obsessed with her, you know, he literally killed her. He literally killed her. Now, this is common knowledge. The guy's been obviously arrested and stuff like that. But these are the elements of our culture that I can't stand. Yeah, because when we used to grow up, when we grew up, we also saw things like this as well. But we had like the music background. We had like the soca and, you know, playing the steel pan. And one thing I admire your father for that is that he kept a lot of us out of crime. With that steel band, it was somewhere to go. It was a community. You know, we can build up, you know, trust with one another, friendships, relations, or whatever you want to call it. And a lot of us stayed out of trouble, because those guys that left us, you know, some of them got into a lot of trouble. So, you know, culture, when you look at culture from our parents, yeah, when they came over here, they were the complete opposite. We don't want to get in trouble. We don't want to be seen. We just want to just be working. We just want to support our families. Whereas elements of the culture now, it almost seems that, and I don't know how you're going to feel about this this next point. I saw a reference from someone in the comments of, I think it was Brian Steve's chat, and he goes, the person said, oh, big 50-year-old talking about roadman stuff and all that. Is there a problem with that? Can a 50-year-old not talk about the roads and the streets, or does that person have a point?
Yeah, 50 excuse me, a 50-year-old can. I don't think that's correct. I think a 50-year-old can, and he can do it in many ways, because maybe he's still active. But it goes back to what you just said as well, right? Maybe that's all he knows. So that is his culture, right? Because you don't know about his family. Like, you spoke briefly about mine, but his family might not have been on the right side of the law. And I know some people, their dad will say to them when they're 8, or their earliest input into what life really means, their dad might say to them, it's all about making money. You know, you've got to make money, right? And it's a truth, but probably not the best type, or not the most complete advice, right? But if they see cash on the table all the time, they come from school, they see cash on the dining table, they see the same uncles, you know, chilling out, talking money, having you know, kicking you out the room, maybe having personal conversations, or maybe you're in the room and you're hearing a conversation, you're two and two together. Maybe that's all you know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what you see. And then when you get older, you're like, you know, you see certain parts of the game and you think, I can do that. And you might break some off and go to school and, you know, sell it, make some money. Some people are selling sweets. You're selling something else, you know, and you might be 12, you might be 15, you might be at college, you might start. Because when I went to college, a lot of people, that's where you see them start to try and make money. It's a new market, you know, they can just bring it to college and, you know, they can make a certain amount a day. And it's like, cool, you know, I'm never missing college, you know, because they got people, because I went Hammersmith College, innit? So you got people from all over London. It's huge.
Yeah.
So everybody's trying to like do that. But something you also said, right, about the steel pan days is like, we had a sense of community within that as well, all the parents and whatever, and there was people that came from particular environments that never really had to worry about, you know. I remember your uncle said to me, you know, it's about being constructive, you know what I mean? Do something constructive in your time when you're younger. So like someone who's 50-year-olds talking about the roads, maybe that's all he knows. Maybe that was constructive. Maybe to him, that's how, because I've heard his story, and like he was always kind of on his own. He never really rolled with too much people. So he must have figured out to do whatever. He wasn't part of no clique, right? But he was always hench. So people never used to trouble him, but like he's his own man. But that's all he knows. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think that's right. But I think like the culture now that he's got, might be just this household, like you said at the top of the show. You know, you got your foods that you eat, the language that you speak, the customs. These are things that are part of culture. Yeah, language, like how we speak, whether it's in the household. Okay, he's getting upset about, what was he getting upset about? Was it bap or blood clot or something?
Bap.
You know what I mean? That's not even core patois, right?
I know.
You know what I mean? It's not like a guy's trying to be M.R. Like, you know what I mean? He's not trying to like read off a sentence. He's just trying to add to the chat. And there's people from I don't know, but yeah, going back to Bionic Steve anyway, right? He's grown up with language. You know, he spoke patois in the house, but what he's seen, maybe he didn't grow up seeing stuff. Maybe that came from the hood, but I don't really think there's an age limit on it. But there's an element of maturity, right? So he could, he it depends, right? Is he glorifying the streets? You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, I remember I was at a barbershop one time, and this guy, I was waiting to get cut, he was in the chair, and he's like, I've been in jail 3 times. I can go in and out of jail whenever I want to, anytime. Being confinement, solitary, it can't break me. And I'm like, okay, that's you, right? But some people will go in there once and learn and be like, you know what, I did 10 years, I wasted 10 years, you know, I didn't get to see my son do this, his first words, whatever, go take him to school, you know, I missed his confirmation or whatever it was, communion, right? Whatever religious ceremony, they missed it. And they might think, you know what, I got to rebuild my relationship with my son because he don't really talk to me. He's more of a mummy's boy, but can't fault him. I weren't there, you know? And maybe that's the main thing. And they're like, nah, I'm going to make sure I'm there. Maybe they got best intentions. Maybe it doesn't work out like that. But if you're glorifying prison like you like it's a hotel or a resort, then you're not very mature, because no one really wants to be in there. No one calls you by your name. You know, you got to sleep on a bunk bed. You know, I don't know how it works with the toilet. I'm not claiming to know much about prison and the showers. You got to wear your underwear in the showers and all that sort of stuff. That's not normal, right? So if you're bigging it up all the time, and you know you're bigging up road culture, and you know looking over your shoulder, because that's what a lot of these guys say. I remember this guy Digger D. I saw an interview with him. He was in America, and he said, "You know what's so nice about here? I'd never have to look over my shoulder." And I thought, that's deep, because you're young, and you're only, you know, you've never known anything else. You probably when you was 8 or 9, but people want to get you, right? So you have to.
We never knew about these guys, did we, when we were growing up? None of these guys, and we grew up in the ends as well. Where did these guys go? Who their parents? We don't know nothing about these guys.
Well, you know, next time we link up streets, I'll break a couple of them down, because you know they got their pick. Because that thing you said about parents, he might be in for a surprise still. But
okay.
But they got some kind of reputation that wasn't around when we was growing up, so it's not even passed down. I don't know. I'm not like, when we grew up, like you said, you had the same kind of issues, right?
Yeah.
It's just that now it seems to be too many. It's too dense. Like, it's like you were saying before. Like we had the same issues, but we had a better sense of community, right? So it was really, you know, we could be at a fun fair and someone could say, Clapham Junction are coming down. There's 50 of them.
Yeah.
But are they? Okay. And then you see them, right?
Yeah.
And it's like certain people start running and certain people don't. And you're like, what do I do? You know what I mean? But they're from over the river. But what I'm seeing now is in West, which never happened, you know, along the Uxbridge Road, say, or in Ladbroke Grove, Harrow Road, excuse me, the neighborhoods aren't getting on. Yeah. The neighborhoods like internal fighting. Yeah, well, Acton Shepherd's Bush used to be cool. Yeah, growing up, cool. Now you've got 2, 3, 4 gangs not getting on. All these kids now, again, going to the same school. Maybe it's primary school, went to different secondary schools, But everybody I know from primary school, I'm kind of cool with. Not everybody, but the ones that I want to know, I'm kind of cool with. But imagine you can't, because in that time, in that 5 years, you were one gang and you split, and now you got to chase sides, or maybe the split is like, we don't like where you're from anymore. So that even like, you know, I don't want to be like a fanboy with the gang names, but I kind of like pay attention to this stuff because I work with young kids. So I like to know, you know, if they're from a certain area. And when I say I work with young kids, we still do the steel band. So like, this is the example, right? We came from Bush, Hammersmith, West Ken, you know, Battersea, Ealing, Ladbroke Grove, different parts, Acton, different parts, right? And we just was in the same area, perfect. Yeah, we never had any problems. Yeah, you do that now, you got to think, right, if I get a kid from West Ken, is he beefing with a kid from Shepherd's Bush? Because the last thing I want
you
is,
don't want them together, innit?
that's it. I'm locking up and there's 50 kids waiting for someone. Or I'm like, oh,
that's the reality, isn't it?
Yeah, can I practice? I'm like, you never practice. What's wrong? And you realize there's a problem, right? You don't want that. But that's how it is now, streets. Yeah, it wasn't like that before. I can't even think of a beef in West London. Yeah, and we had friends near Junction. You know, you had family near Junction, right? We knew of them, but they weren't bringing no hostility. Like, you know, it was cool. They was more up this side maybe or whatever. But now you'll be able to trust that situation because you don't know who you're dealing with. But yeah, the kids you got to make sure you've got boys from Harlesden, from a couple of schools. You got to make sure, okay, are you more of a Stonebridge kid? Are you more of a Church End kid? Church Road kid? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not even the kids. It could be the brothers, could be the parents picking them up.
Yeah,
that's what it is now.
That,
so you
beef goes deep, man. That beef goes deep, man. You know, that's a long history of, you know, generations just beefing each other. Yeah, there's too much blood and history involved in that.
And like I said, it's the parents you got to watch with the kids. It ain't even the kids, the parents, because you don't want any kind of. And some of the parents are cool. Some of the parents, most of them are. If you've got the mums picking up the kids, it's less of an issue. Yeah. You know what I mean? If it's the dads, and some of the dads might have the kid on the weekend, then you just gotta make sure it's all good. But that's another beef that's been glorified somewhat. Even though, like you said, it's deep, and it is deep. It's been glorified on record and all of that Northwest. You know, that's part of like what people like. And people can make content out of.
Yeah.
You know, I saw something interesting just on that point this morning. I looked at a podcast and it was Bouncer. And you know, Bouncer's a guy, you got to shout him out. Like he's
big up Bouncer.
Actually a really interesting character because he covers a lot of bases, like what you could call the culture, because he's worked as a music industry manager.
Yeah.
And he was smart, and he's someone who knows how to play the game.
Yeah.
You know, like I got a friend called Abs. He'll say, I know the YouTube game, right? He definitely knows the Spotify game. Like Bouncer knows the streaming game and how to cut deals, how to spot a good deal, a bad deal, and how to represent your artist. But he's got a background. You know, I've never really been to Thornton Heath. I've been to Croydon a couple of times, but not specifically Thornton Heath.
Yeah.
I think I've been there once, and it looked kind of nice to me. I saw bare villagey type houses, but clearly it ain't like that. But you know, he's got his background, right? And not epistemalism. My point about him is, I looked at a video, and like he's always trying to like make people think, right? Sometimes he's human, so he got drawn out, right? Maybe we'll talk about that later. But his thing today was, where's the line? Like, if you're going to tell a story, we can't hide behind the words alleged or reports, you know, unconfirmed reports, or, you know, because that doesn't that mean that it's not really news? Because there was a story that, I don't know if you caught this story. There's some gang in Camden, a Mali gang, and they did a move. They did an audacious move. And this is the level of gang they are, right? They're not just walking around with 12-inch knives, right?
Yeah.
But they scammed. You know, I shouldn't say they scammed. I'm falling to the trap, right? So the story,
we've got to use it allegedly.
The story is that they were that there was some type of scam involving crypto. And this gang did a major heist, like hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And then there was some payback on there, and basically it was like the guy did a report about someone in the gang's dad maybe got stabbed. Like, so Bouncer was saying, think about if you're his family and you're reading that, or you're hearing that podcast. Like, so an older guy, like a dad, right? We don't know much about the dad, but it might not be true, right? It might be true, but even if it's true, it's nothing to do with the gang. He's outside of it. He's just a relative, right? But you're just trying to find news to talk. Like, where's the boundaries? Because, and the guy, I think his name's Honcho, right? He doesn't. This guy who's reporting, he doesn't cover his face, right? He's just a young guy who's out there, and he's not from the streets.
You're
right? So he may not have, like, what's the word, credibility, or someone might think twice if he was from the street, or, you know, better not approach him. They might do their due diligence. You say, he's from the street, he's 30, can't go where he's from, like, he could, whatever. Not that a gang like that would care, but if you're not from the street and you're just, you know, riding public transport, or you got no tints on your car, and you're talking about someone's uncle, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, where's the people drawing the line now? Because they're just anything for content. Like, we know like drama, as I said before. Like, I get it. You know, you might want to talk about a K-Coke song that's got a reference to Nines, or a Nine song that's got a reference to K-Coke, or a Digger D reference to my man from Zart. What's his name? Fredo, right? Because they got a little rivalry, right? And it's not just lyrical, right? It's deeper. So
personal.
That's gonna get you a lot of traction. It's gonna get you a lot of likes, a lot of clicks, a lot of people, and everybody's gonna be talking about it. Have you heard it? Then that feeds into the downloads and whatever. And it's kind of like a great example of the culture, right? That's kind of like, it's an industry term, isn't it? It's like, this is good for the culture, right? They'll say that because, you know, everybody, it's good because everybody's talking about it, and Digga D is going to get more downloads, and people are going to check out Fredo's downloads. You're going to listen to the songs. They're going to see whose is better, right? So it's good because you're making money, he's making money, we're making money. People are talking about you, so you've got relevance. You're at the top of the chart, all of that. But from someone looking back, it's like, well, what's really going on here? Okay, we've got two songs, and they're talking about what? And maybe the lyrical content ain't the best. Maybe the threats are a bit silly. Again, self-snitching, self-incriminating. But that's lost, you know, because it's just the buzz in it. It's the sizzle of the sausage. It's like, that's what people want to hear. You know, they just want to hear the buzz. They don't really care about the bee or the sausage, right? They don't really care about that. It's just the noise. That's what they want to hear.
Exactly.
So,
but I wanted to. Sorry, go on.
No, I'm done, man.
Yeah, I wanted to, like, because we've spoken a lot about obviously the gang side and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, but I want to, like, talk about, like the clothing side of things as well, because there's no doubt that Black culture specifically, in terms of streetwear, has been a major influence. Now, maybe it's we've not produced from like the 80s, 90s, but we've definitely styled it, and we've definitely worn it a certain way that others have followed suit. We can go back to the Chippy days, the Naf Naf days, the Averex jackets, the Nike Air Max. No one on this earth, and I'm talking about even in the US as well. Obviously, we get a lot of our culture from the US. No one wears it like us. What would you say to that?
Well, now this part of the culture, streetwear, right? Number one,
We're gonna get into Cortez and all that as well. Yeah, just want to
yeah.
just.
No, we're gonna be here for a little while. I apologize because this is close to my heart, and both of us, we've had conversations, we've done articles on this and whatever. So this is good. But I just wanted to say this element of the culture is, for me, the element that should be pushed out there first, front and forward, and there should be more discussions around this because this is a success and a win, right? And it's something that we've been the tastemakers of, right? We've driven, we've been at the front carriage all the time. We've been in first class when it comes to like pushing the envelope in terms of what can be done, and people have looked at us without always wanting to admit it, and the influence is there, right? The influence is there, and they're always trying to move away from it, but they're always still in it, right? But all of the, let's take it back, right? Because even before our time, right? The Wallabies, in the 70s, the Gabici, you see the men wearing them. Gregory Isaacs was known for his Gabici garms. The Wallaby culture in Jamaica with the desert boots as well from the Clarks.
The Ballies as well.
The Ballies, the comfort.
Yeah.
The Travel Fox, the all of that comfort.
Did you just mention Travel Fox?
Huh?
Did you just mention Travel Fox?
Yeah.
I ain't heard that name in years.
Oh, there's a next brand someone told me the other day, and I was like, I totally forgotten them.
Travel Fox, bro.
I can't remember. I should have written it down, but maybe it'll pop in my head. But you see, all these things, like all these clothes weren't really designed for us. Clarks. Everybody who went to school in this country probably went to the Clark store to get their foot measured on the machine
and all that.
Get a comfortable pair of good school shoes, right? And that's not just the culture. That's everybody in the country I'm talking about. From Glasgow, Newcastle, Nottingham, Liverpool, Cardiff, Plymouth, Bristol, everywhere. Clark's school kids. That's it. So you grow up knowing about it, but then you see the style when you get a bit older. But like you said, in London, definitely Shelley's now. Shelley's had a lot of shoes, and that's a store that doesn't exist anymore. It's a shame, but it's another topic for another day. When you're retail, you got to make that conversion from physical space to digital space, otherwise you get left behind. But they didn't do that. But that was a store where lots of people went. But a lot of these shoes weren't made for us. A lot of these shoes are made for like a different demographic, a different, they wouldn't consider us when they're thinking about the price point of the shoes. Some of these shoes were there, right? And actually, our culture always wants the best, and we can't always get there in one go, but we'll get there because we want the best. A lot of people look at us and think, they don't want the best or they can't afford the best, but actually, we always get the best. Whether it's like, I had a friend who his dad built sound system boxes. And we all grew up around sound systems. That's another part of our culture that's gone, by the way. Like, having the sound systems play out in the neighborhoods and stuff like that. That's gone. But look what sound system culture has done for music in this country.
Oh, bro.
It's it, right?
And
it's like that with the fashion.
Yeah.
It's like that with the fashion. Certain elements have gone, but it's now everywhere. But I was gonna say the speakers, the woofers, the mid-range, the tweeters, when they buy the parts, they're just buying the best parts. It's no cheap thing. Don't be fooled by the board, the wood and the plyboard and stuff like that. They're buying the best. So always wanting the best. So like all those shoes, I'm talking about Bally's and Travel Fox. There's another shoe as well around that time, but the Clarks desert boots and that. It's quality. It's quality. It's comfort.
Kickers as well.
Style. Yeah, the kickers. I chatted to my brethren the other day in a pub. He was talking about kickers and how because he saw my Wallabies, and he's like, he just pulled out a pair of kickers. I've never seen them before. The same boots, but the color was different. And he's like, yeah, they're doing these colors now. So a lot of these things have got legacy.
Rockports as well. Rockports.
Yeah, Rockports. A lot of these things are still relevant because we made them what they are. Do you know what I mean? And they're now being sold to a different audience. But the garms, the way you look at fashion now, a high level, the hoodie, the trainer, yeah, the comfortable track pant that looks smart, or the jeans that are tapered and stuff like that. I mean, I know jeans, I can't keep up with jeans. You know, I try not to wear them, to be honest, now, because you buy them and they're out of style after a year. So you just got to know what you're buying and stick to it. Like, I guess baggy is always going to be best because that's how we grew up. It's baggy, right? The Chippy, the Chevron cords, the C17 cord rather, you know, all of that. Again, clothes that weren't designed for us. I think the managing director of Chippy said he finds it ugly, and he's ashamed the way his clothes are being used in London in the late 80s and 90s. Yeah, because he saw like the ragga culture, you know, the bandanas, the way we oversized it. But
hold on, didn't he profit from us though?
Of course he did. But again, this is an indication of none of these clothes that we made, none of these styles that we made with the clothes. The style is different from the clothes, right? So none of the clothes were made for us. They didn't make Chippy and thinking we want young black men in the inner cities of London to wear this. No, they were thinking about French kids or thinking about middle-class French people wearing it. And I think Chippy was big in Spain and other parts of Europe. There's no black people there. So they didn't think about us, but they weren't reselling. Like you said, we made the money. We made him so much money. My man sold the company that he cut out, right? So he sold, I think they stopped making jeans and then he sold it. So they don't really make jeans. They make like more kids wear and stuff like that. But that's hate. For me, that's hate. Because you know, and it's a poor business brain. Because you didn't.
There's a few guys that's, sorry to cut you. There's a few like brands that's actually mocked us as well, like Gucci. I remember they done this blackface campaign thing. I think Tommy Hilfiger as well might have said something ludicrous back in the day. So, but we spend a lot of money. We spend a lot of money, you know, and this is another thing as well. Have we kind of been blinded by, you know, all these extravagant luxury brands? You know, when we've got our brands knocking on the doors, you know, like Cortez, Daily Paper, the Cold Wall. We've got brands out there now that are quite popular in this country and the US as well.
And shout out to a lot of the West African designers as well, who's doing like high-end stuff. There's a couple of female designers I did a piece on as well, that are doing some really good stuff, like the Kai Collective as well. There's a lot of actually doing well in America and not so much in this country
as well.
But you see, there's a lot of what I think it is aspiration. So like, again, you know, I was listening to, can't remember the name of the rapper, not so important, but it was talking, it may not have been a rapper, I think it was a Teas and Crumpets, and shout out to him. He was in some hood, and it's talking about, it was in West, he's talking about the fact they always saw across the road from the hood they're in, because that's how it is in West a lot. You might see £4 million houses, right? You got a playground, you got a swing.
Yeah.
Up the road, you can see a Mercedes, you can see a Porsche, you can see like a Land Rover.
Yeah.
You know, and you know there's kids that you wave at maybe, but the parents never let them come into the playground because the playground is in the estate. But they want to go in there because it looks fun. But the parents are like, no. And maybe when you get older, you might play football with them, or you get to know them, or you go to the shop, you meet them in the shop.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was always talking about, they always saw wealth in front of them and they had the aspiration to think, you know what, I'm from around here and people make it, so I can make it, which is an interesting one. But I think as well as the American culture as well, like the New York culture, the LA culture, whereby I know like Harlem is in Manhattan, and Manhattan is obviously really wealthy. You see a lot of stuff, but then you go like 20 blocks down, you're in Harlem. And Harlem, don't get me wrong, is nice. It's nice, but obviously it's not as nice. But they're seeing like, because when you're in Harlem, Central Park's at the bottom of Harlem, right? So not a lot of people know that. So you're seeing people going into Manhattan, because the other end of it'll be Fifth Avenue, like where the shops are and near Times Square. So like, you know, that's one end, and the other end is Harlem, right? Or you'll be in Harlem, right? So they're seeing cars driving through Harlem trying to get to so they're seeing all the style. Maybe back in the day when Harlem had like that excellence of the gang culture with the minks and the furs, they're seeing all of that. And obviously people like Dapper Dan, he's like, you know what? I'm seeing all this stuff down there, and then they're not letting us in the shops to buy it. So I'm just going to go in there and make, and you know, or they couldn't afford some of the stuff, but he was a big person to sort of drive the logos and the stuff that was more out of people's reach. He customized it, but I think it's aspiration, a lot of it. Now people have got money, they're kind of looking up to, okay, I couldn't get into that shop when I was younger. I could only dream of getting it.
Yeah.
So now I've got it. I want to show people I can, and you know you can't. And a lot of it is hunting, and I don't really check for that. And I'm like, if I had money, I'd want to support my own. I want to support a guy, even if it wasn't race. It could be just where I live. If there's like a local guy who's making nice clothes, I'd rather support him. But obviously, like black culture, if I know there's someone from my race who is catering to my needs, and I know that they're being genuine and authentic with their intentions, they're not exploiting it, and I know that money is staying in the community because it's going to their business, so it's going to their families, and they might buy a house off the back of that and rent it to a relative or a friend or whatever, or create an office and create jobs for their friends, then that's better. So I would always do that. And there's some nice stuff. I mean, like I said at the top, these are the sort of success stories I want to see more of. Like when we talk about the culture, right? I know these guys don't need to do podcasts, right? They got websites. Look at Cortez. I know you mentioned him, but he's a manager in this border league. And Balotelli was a star player, one of the legends. He was on the legends team. And, you know, they've obviously spoken at some point, and then they've done a drop recently, you know, and that's good collaboration. And Cortez is a guy that I've got to respect because he's got I've seen Ronaldinho wearing his trainers. I've seen Ronaldinho wearing his garms. Neymar, I've seen wearing his garms. Vinicius Jr., I've seen wearing his garms. So there's something about Brazil that he's got traction in, you know. I've seen a lot of people wear his garms, period. If I go to Westfields, or if I go to Oxford Street, I'm bound to see someone in Cortez. Whether it's a knockoff or not, I don't know. But all publicity is good publicity. That's just free advertising. So that's how far he's come. He's not someone who's you know, promotes badness. Yeah, other brands might lean towards that, and maybe that's where they're from. But where he's from is just, I'm going to show people how to do this. And I've seen a lot of marketing genius from him where people have copied him, and people are copying him. I mean, I know you know that people are copying the styles, big brands, and that's what we do. We set the, like, now you've got designers doing it. So before we was buying, I don't know, Chippy, or we was buying Nike. Now we're making our own clothes, or they're making their clothes. They're collaborating with these trainer brands because trainers aren't easy to make, right? If you want to keep up with the tech that they have in trainers. But a brand like Nike, there's too much competition now. You know, maybe some people think, they're too street, I don't want to wear them. Or like me, sometimes you don't want to wear what everybody's got. Or you want to hide the tick so people don't know it's Nike. Let me find a shoe that doesn't have that. And then you're like, well, what's the point? You know, maybe I may as well not wear it. Or, do you know what I mean? Some people are like that. So there's obviously different brands. You know, Dave did something with New Balance. You did a piece on that.
Yeah.
And at the time you did that piece, I'm like, well, that's an interesting move. I ain't too sure about that. They must be paying him a lot to put his face next to New Balance. And lo and behold, they've just taken over, you know. And the reason why I can say that is when the streets adopt you, you know, when the culture adopts you, that's when a brand knows that they're really taking over.
Yeah, they know you're influential. Yeah, they know that for the culture, you're gonna have a heavy influence on the culture. You're gonna make sales for us. Yeah, because come on, let's be real. Yeah, most of this, if not, is based on money, isn't it? Yeah, based on projection. Look at Central C. One of the biggest things that come out of like Trapstar when he done the Wild West campaign. You know, the guy's got Trapstar tattooed all over it, you know, tattooed on his wherever it is, you know. And when he launched his album, Central C for me, yeah, he seems like the perfect kind of marketing, and I say tool here, yeah, because you know he's a good rapper, you know, he's a good looking guy, you know, he talks in a certain way as well that you know the youngsters love and stuff like that. And you know his numbers in the UK and the state, they talk for themselves. You know, he's not gone over to the States and been a failure. He's been successful here, and he's been a success in the UK. Yeah, he's global. But people in our culture, some people in our culture, they won't respect that because they don't see him as, you know, someone with the same color as us. But for me, I don't care about all of that because a lot of us as families, you know, we you know, black people in general, yeah, we kind of like also don't just stick within our own race, you know, there's, you know, if you look at our families, you know, we've got so many different cultures and so many different nations from, you know, other countries that, you know what, they have half and half, you know what I'm saying? So
it's an interesting point about Central C because even like I see things like Izzy White and I see people talking, and this is why this topic around the culture is interesting because at times we've spoken about
who owns it, Monte, who owns the culture?
The culture, the gatekeepers should be the streets, right? If we're honest, like the culture, right? Everything we've spoken about and everything we could, all right. I mean, okay, just on that point, right? So, what elements are in the culture, right? So, I would say heritage, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know where you're from, where your family's from, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's language, right? And these are things that are shared across the culture, right? So the way we speak. So we're not talking about pidgin or patois necessarily, but there's road talk. There's a language that's been spoken in every school in London from the kids. Yeah. That is
but where some of that, sorry to cut you, some of that also comes from Jamaican culture.
Some of it does. Some of it is pidgin related.
Yeah.
Some of the because say like my one of my good friends is Ghanaian, and when I was at his house when I was 12, and his uncles always used to say, "Are you mad?" Like they'd have arguments with each other, right? So I know that phrase. You hear it a lot. That's 100% West African, right? They say that all the time, right? So some of it's that, some of it's Cockney as well, right? But some of it is increasingly coming from the Arabic communities as well, in terms of the cadence of the language, the way it's
you're getting deep, man.
No, it is. It's not just the one thing, right? But that's why I'm saying the street owns it, because there's language, there's heritage, right? There's music. So I'm not talking about traditional music, but the music that we all listen to or we all make, right?
Yeah.
I might like some rock music, I might like some classical music, but at the core is pretty much going to be black music, right? And that's what people listen to. We can, not urban, you know, the people that make it will say, okay, I'm not black, but the music, I mean, rock and roll is black, right? It's just them Manchester and all of that. They were the ones that people copied. And then, you know, when British artists started to grow their hair and wear high heels and lipstick and stuff, they turned it into something else, right? And they put it into rock music, and it's loud and it's head banging and all that bull, right? But I'm not in that. But the music is definitely something you make, the history we consume, and the culture as well around that. So example might be steel pan, example might be sound system, right? That's part of the culture. Then you got like the food. I mean, so that's one thing that brings a lot of races together.
Oh
is the
yeah.
way we prepare our food. So we use seasoning, right?
Yes.
We use a lot of seasoning. We might all use rice, breads. Yeah. Often we can all eat with our hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can do that. So we'll have a shared plate, a big spread. You know, I've been in Middle Eastern restaurants where I've seen them do this. They'll have breads, they'll have meats, they'll have everything on one table.
Yeah.
Dip, you know, use your hands. African restaurants, I go to one all the time in Manchester. I see they don't use cutlery.
You didn't tell me that.
Yeah, there's one. What's it called? I think I
shout them out, man. Shout them out.
What are they called? I'm gonna check them on the. I don't want to get it wrong because I said a couple of things today and I'm thinking, did I get that right? But I've been there a couple of times and like they eat with their hands. It was fish, whether it's any type of meat, they eat with their hands.
Can I just say something before you continue? Don't lose that. Don't lose track here. One thing I've noticed in Caribbean restaurants now, I've noticed a lot more different cultures, a lot more different nationalities. So you see a lot more English, British people, white people frequenting Caribbean restaurants now. Is that because they go? We can talk about it as another point, but is that because they go to places like Jamaica more frequently? But yeah, continue, man.
No, let me answer that one quick, right? Because I know where I'm at. So I feel it's a few things. I think, definitely the holidays, but they're not cheap. So you probably think the middle class families can afford to go there every year or frequently. But I think, again, it's the culture. Again, it's look at Notting Hill Carnival, right? I don't know when the last time you went, right? But you might be quite surprised.
Years ago, bro.
You might be quite surprised if you go Notting Hill Carnival. You see these people on the internet who are anti-carnival and the stabbings and ban it. They don't realize most people that go there are not from the streets of London and not from the culture. They're people who come from all over the world, from Serbia, from different parts of Europe, from China, and then definitely from the country, this country that is. People have come from Nottingham, from the Midlands, from up north, and then white people specifically go to it and they feel safe because they know, what, we go to this bit, so they might not be on the route, but they'll go on the route, or maybe they'll just plot at one point and they'll get the wines in and whatever they do to have fun. But they'll go to the house, they'll go to the one extra stages. It's like a festival for them, right? So they're used to the food now. They're used to all of that. So I think as well, like there's less barriers. So our culture is more out there. It's not hidden away. We're seeing people from our culture on TV presenting shows now, big shows, talking, representing the culture. They'll talk about jerk chicken,
Yes.
What's that? Let me try that. Oh, I've got one of those in my area. It's always patched. Let me go in there and see what the fuss is about. But like I said, our food is nice because it's seasoned, right? This is why, people like Asian food, right? They like curry, spicy, it's seasoned. It's not bland. It's like, so London is a great place to live if you like restaurants, because even me, I don't need I'm used to that. So I'll try some stuff that's different. Lebanese food's quite nice. I like that. I had some Ethiopian food. Some of the breads are sweet and sour and just a bit different, and seeing how, again, kind of goes back to my point. Like we all seasons our meat. We prepare our meat a certain way. We eat with our hands. We eat breads. We tend to cook our meats a certain way so it's succulent. You know what I mean? It's not like tough where you need a knife to carve it and all of that. We don't really eat like that. Not disrespecting carveries and stuff like that, and people who like steaks, because we all like steaks, but we eat a lot of seafood. Yeah, so the food is definitely part of the culture, the music, as I mentioned, the language, the heritage, the environment as well. So I made a point. We got people from Ladbroke Grove who might have, they got Moroccans, they got Portuguese, they got obviously West Indians, Africans. Asians, you know, white people, right? So if you all in this play in the same school and you grew up and you live in the same block all your life and your families all know each other, you're gonna probably all speak the same. You're probably gonna do the same things. You know, you're gonna roll as a crew, right? And that's culture, and that's another reason why people will try different foods, because they're used to going to their friend's house and eating it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna check your unboxing. Yeah, come through. And it's like, yeah, now you're eating rice and peas. Now you're eating
exactly
food. You know what I mean? That's what happens. Or it could be, I'm eating Moroccan meat. You know, I'm eating whatever. You know, that's what happens. You know, when you go to your friend's house, they'll say, no, you come, you just play football all day. No, come and eat. You know, make sure you eat. You build your strength back up. So that's how we learn about culture, right? But there's certain things that in our culture, and who owns it? Like I said, it's got to be the people. They've got to be the streets, like, because with this type of culture, I actually think we don't own it, right? When we talk about the culture.
Wow, that's a big statement, you know.
No, I don't think we do, because a lot of the stuff we do streets is, you see some of the stuff like, and we want to go. I want to continue with the fashion because it's positive. I think we need to talk more about that in terms of we talk about the background, talk about what's happening now. But
we've got to mention some of these guys that we work with as well in the fashion industry as well. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, what I was gonna say is, I feel like a lot of the nonsense that you see on TV is when it comes to the culture, like some of the stuff we talked about at the beginning. Maybe some of the shows that we like or we don't like, but a lot of that is drama. A lot of that is conflict. A lot of that is beef, you know. And it could go out of hand. There's some stuff at the moment could go out of hand, but a lot of that is just industry related, because they get clicks, they you know, it's like AFTV, you know, ranting for views. Sometimes it's calculated, right? I don't think it is in the most part of what I've been seeing of these egos, right? But we don't really know it, because at the end of the day, what's trending is very, it's not organic. Like, you know, if someone says something like, say like Young Spray's podcast, right? He's mouthy in it, so he's gonna say things to rile up people. He knows what he's doing. He's smart, right? He's an intelligent guy. He knows what he's doing. That's him. He can take the mickey out of you if he can't rile you up. He'll laugh at you. You know what I mean? But that's what people want. They want entertainment. They want to laugh stuff. So that's more. He's doing that for views. Do you see what I mean? He's doing that for his bank account. So like, who controls that? So there's someone in YouTube that he has a meeting with. They'll say, "Oh, you're great. We want you to be official. This, we'll give you this." You know, because his subs are high. You know what I mean? So like, he can get certain things he'll probably get in the future if he keeps growing his brand. Whereas I feel like that part of the culture is fake, but I feel there's an other part of the culture where
that's interesting you saying that. Yeah, interesting you making that you feel okay.
I think some of it is genuine, like in terms of like people don't like each other. Like, I'm not even gonna mention the guy's name because he's not even worth highlighting, because I don't want anybody to listen to him. But there's a guy in his 50s, just deliberately going around talking nonsense about people, saying you knocked this person out, and he's this and this, you know, creating, and he's doing it for views, right? He must be doing it so that people talk about him. You see what I mean? That's fake. Maybe because if you had a real problem with someone, you deal with it differently. Now, you're supposed to be in your 50s. You're supposed to be a bit more mature and say, you know what? I'm not.
He's doing it for the same reasons, though, as I would say Spray as well. But Spray's more.
He's trying to find an angle to get views, right?
Yeah.
But
are we all doing that though? Isn't there an argument that we're all trying to do that?
But we are. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But it's the angle, right? So his angle is, I'm gonna make stuff up or dispute. Let's say someone does a piece of content and they say XYZ happened. He'll come on and say, "No, that never happened." You know, blah blah blah, and people will be like, "What are you talking about?" So they'll say this guy, blah, 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 and he'll fire back. So he's just trying to generate. He's using game. Don't get me wrong, but like it all for the culture. He's destructive. He's not actually. He's pulling people down. It's like you said earlier about when someone does well, there's jealousy. People try to pull you down. That happens a lot, right?
Yeah.
You can't. People don't celebrate each other's successes. We don't resolve conflict very well. You know, we can't get around the table. You know, so this guy, so I don't like. You know, someone might say, I don't like street geeks. Who's he think he is? And in the comments, they might
say, we're going to get that, by the way. We're going to get that, by the way.
Yeah, and it'll gap. And I probably said things on this podcast people won't disagree with. And that's fine. That's what we want. But we're not trying to disrespect anybody. Now, if they try and disrespect us, how we react to it is how we react to it. But this guy is on the disrespect it. He's going around and he's saying stuff. So all of that is a bit fake for me.
Yeah.
And we're not, if there's no views or there's no growth, then it doesn't happen. So I think the industry controls definitely the podcast space a lot. Whereas like what I wanted to talk about is when you're independent, when you're like a brand, like let's say a trap star, where you can go and you can collaborate with the next brand because you both have something to give each other. It's not just I need your money, YouTube, or I need your money, Spotify. Yeah, they'll say, okay, come on our podcast and work. You know, work hard, do what you got to do to get those likes, and then we can talk about your monetization. But when you're selling something and it's going well, you know, like a better example would be like Cortez. Like Nike might look at him and think
he's marketable.
We're struggling out here. New Balance are killing us. Asics are killing us. You know, these new trainers, Hoka, On Cloud, they're killing us, right? So we need to find a way in. We can't afford losing money. So let's do a collab with you. We like the way you do drops, but we can't do drops. Doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? We could do drops, but it's just people will just resell it. So they know now. Let's not take that risk. We'll put that risk on you. We'll do a Nike trainer that will get your audience. But that's collaboration, that's respect. And he's in control of that because he can say yes, no, because he's not coming to them, they're coming to him. So he's more in control of that. And all the positive stuff that we do, we should kind of own that. You know, there's loads of stuff, there's loads of people we haven't mentioned, like for the culture, like been on TV. I don't want to mention particular people, but people like say like Moda Comedian or Big Nasty, whether you like them or not, they've come on Channel 4 and they've pushed certain parts of the culture. You know, I don't find them. I think Moda Comedian's kind of funny, Big Nasty, you know, sometimes whatever, but their show is kind of cool. People like it. You know, they're pushing the culture. You know, they need Channel 4, let's face it, to do that show. Maybe they could do it by themselves and have their own programming, but they're pushing certain elements of the culture there that are not negative. But on this YouTube space with the podcasters, they're not all bad. There's some really good podcasts where they're helping you. Like I said, Bouncer makes people think. He asks questions. He's trying to educate people.
Yeah,
educate young
I rate Bouncer. A lot of people like give him a lot of they don't rate him and they call him names and stuff. But I like him. I think he's very smart at what he does as well. He's very controversial as well. And in this space, you have to be that way as well. It can't just be just like everyone agree with each other and stuff like that. And I rate
him because he said he's going to do a podcast every day this year, and he stuck to his word. I think. Loosely.
Wow, serious. We need to be on the type of level soon.
he's consistent. He's been consistent, and I don't think he has done it because there's been times where he's had to come off. I think for his own mental health. He, and you know, because there was stuff going on obviously recently where probably it's best that he took a day off, right? But he's trying to do good some good content. There's a couple of brothers, I think their channel's called CHZO. They're in the gym. Some Nigerian brothers, they're in the gym and they just talk about finances, mortgage, and like, you know, what you need to do with your money, as well as like they'll have guests like Carlton Cole was on their show and they were talking about
nice.
So there's some good pods out there. They're not all bad. And there's loads of podcasters that I like that I didn't mention, you know, but there's a lot of chatting about beef and drama and incriminating. and they got to realize the police are listening to this stuff, and if they're not, it's easy to find it. You just go on YouTube, right? So they're making some real basic mistakes, you know. So they just got to make sure that they the stuff that's worth talking about, talk about it, and the other stuff where your ego's getting burnt, don't. But yeah, the streetwear has got loads of champions. Like we mentioned a few. You saying about some of the people that we collab and work with, that you wanted to highlight.
Yeah, so I wanted to obviously mention first and foremost, I need to mention this rapper that we got that we work with called Young R, the Movement. Now he's one of the guys that he's like a grime type of rapper, but he's a positive grime rapper. He's not on crud. He's not talking all this nonsense and all that kind of stuff, and I rate him. So big up to him. Even I just sent him a message about we need to get him on the pod, and he's up for it. I also said that you know, we need an intro as well, and he said it provide a tune for us. So this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. People that they just do things because they can see positive vibes. You know, there's other people out there that, you know, everything's got to be like a price on everything, isn't it? And I know people got to make money as well and stuff like that. But you know what? Remember us in your good times, and we remember you in your bad times, like vice versa, kind of thing. But yeah, big up to Legend de Paris. They're probably one of the biggest brands that we've worked with. Joe Carde, big up to Dean and his family. Brilliant brands. Obviously, we've got interviews on our website. Please go and look up these interviews, because it'll give you a good insight into Dean's life, and you know, how he built his brand and his history and stuff like that. Also brands like Pattern Free London. Obviously Monte, he got the connect in it on TikTok, and from there you know, we've had, I think we need to do a lot more work with these guys, and that's going to happen because we're going to probably be bringing on guests probably in the near future. But this is our first pod in it, so you know, just bear with us, guys. And there's other guys out there as well who I probably haven't even mentioned right now, and you know, you've been prevalent with us as well. The likes of who else have we got as well? There's a few other, Maison Derive as well, Slumped as well, Front Company as well. You know, we're going to be working with you guys, hopefully, you know, in the near future and stuff like that. So if you want to learn a lot more about these other brands that we're working with, as I said, go over to our website, www.bestblogabout.com. Also as well, you can check out our Instagram, our TikTok. We're everywhere, man. LinkedIn. We're listen, you see, the rest of this year, me and Monte, we're going to be putting in some work. Yeah, just put it that way. I know, like, obviously we've got holidays and stuff like that, but I think Monte's getting the bug, because usually I'm the talker. He's been talking a lot today. Nearly 2 hours. He's been talking too much.
I said much. Good one to start off with. Some, we gotta make sure that we pick some good topics, but they don't have to be 2 hours. But there's so much. There's so much, like, in the streetwear space that I really like, and you know, all those people that you've mentioned, like, they've got great stories. You realize they've had to graft, but isn't it just positive, you know? And this is the side of the culture, as I said before. Like, if more people knew, because we all like fashion, we all like wearing it, but if more people knew, like, some of the wins and the satisfaction you can get. Everybody can't be a fashion designer, right? But
no.
I think it's more about, these are the characters that they need to, like, push out there, because they need the exposure because of the business. You know, there's people that are, you know, people say that they I don't, you know what, I don't want to get into any negativity or drama, right? Obviously there's beefs out there, and there's this, and this person isn't real, and this person's got no money, and this person, you know, is a informant, and all of that sort of talk. It's just a waste. Like, talk about the people that are winning, and doing things at their family.
Exactly. Shout out to all good people as well. Sorry, I needed to shout them out as well. These are all the guys that support us as well. So yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good, man. And that's kind of like, that's the part of the culture I think is an interesting space, because I think streetwear is going to get bigger. I mean, we've seen like these brands like Essentials and Represent, right?
Yeah.
No disrespect to them, you know, they're doing their thing, and they do it in a different way. Cole Buxton, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It goes to show like the influence. Like I said, the hoodie, you know, we grew up wearing hoodies. We grew up wearing baseball caps when no one else was doing that. We grew up wearing trainers when no one else was doing that, you know. And look at where it's like standard all over the world. You know, we literally had trucker hats in our steel band. You know, we had trucker hats they were actually from a truck company, you know, and they were our sponsors. And we had trucker hats from, you know, way in the 80s, in the mid 80s. And now everybody's got them, you know. So these guys are like tastemakers, like I call them, you know, trendsetters. They're in an industry where they'll get a lot of credibility. People look at us to make things cool. You know, we control culture in the sense that if we don't co-sign it as a community, if we don't actually adopt it as a community, is it really cool? You know? So that's what we do. So like, I think this is like much more positive space, and it's good that we've got these links, and we're growing all the time, because this is the kind of conversations I think an audience would want to hear more of than, you know, 50-year-old guys talking about who had what prison fight and who knocked who out and all that nonsense, which the algorithms seem to like. I seem to like have to see all this nonsense on my phone. I want to see like the discussions. And you know, streetwear is it's a competitive industry, we know that, yeah. But
100% saturated as well, very saturated as well, oversaturated.
They don't diss each other. That's what I like. Do you know what I mean? I've never seen Trapstar and Hoodrich get into it. You know, they could have done, could have said, "Oh, you copied me," or I've never seen that. They've been focused. That's what I like. They don't have to like each other, but they could do it because they've got some great adverts. Some of the adverts that some of these more successful streetwear brands can put out. Again, marketing genius, creative, really clever. 5-minute vids, 2-minute vids, sometimes 10-minute movies, mini movies. And you'll see a lot more of this in the short form content. Trust me, there's a lot more opportunities for people to make videos and stuff like that. But they've been respectful, man. And that's how you do it. All these guys, it's not even the drill kids. We can only expect them to diss each other and be disrespectful. The babies. But when you got guys,
the influence that they have though on the youngsters, though, the young kids are killing each other, yeah, listening to this music. Now, whether there's an argument to say, well, they shouldn't be influenced by these type of music, but come on now, even like guys our age are still influenced by this type of music. Now, I don't want to keep talking about the music, because we've spoken a lot on that already. But one thing I've just brought up on my phone, and this is very kind of like a nice kind of like ending to the show. It's the 77th anniversary of the Empire, the Wind's Rush arrival in Britain. You know, these people that our great grandparents, great grandparents, 77 years ago, they paved literally the way for me and you know, to be talking on this podcast right now. Who knows, we may have been brought up in the Caribbean, may not even have a platform. But I just thought it's a very good, you know, very good way to go out and just showing our respect to our grandparents, to our parents, yeah, because our parents, they had it worse. They had it a lot worse than us in certain situations. When we talk about violence against us, maybe not black on black crime, but maybe like, you know, racism and stuff like that. What would you say about the Windrush before, and actually in your name as well, Monte. Maybe you want to give us a little bit of background about your name as well, because I know you're a guy that is very versed on Caribbean history as well. So, what would you say about the Windrush history, just to educate the people?
Well, you know, my name is a play on the Empire of Windrush. That's the boat that to this day is crazy, you know. June the 22nd, we didn't even think about that, but you're right. It's the anniversary when that boat, the Empire Windrush, came and docked at Tilbury in Essex, bringing mainly Jamaicans, some passengers from Trinidad and Barbados, and I think other parts of the Caribbean as well. But I think about 55% were from Jamaica. And my name, Monte Rosa, is the original name of that ship. So that was when it was a German ship. That's what it was called. It was an ocean liner. Yeah, it was an ocean liner.
I didn't even know all this. I didn't know about that.
It was a German ship, and then during the World War, it survived, and the UK seized the ship, like, you know, this T-fit, because it was a good ship. So I realized that, and they changed the name and whatever, and it was
wow.
Yeah,
look at the history lesson, man.
Yeah, man. So yeah, that's where the name comes from, Monte Rosa. It's definitely always like a reference to our heritage, and you know, you got to think about it, man. It was
we're proud, isn't it? We can be proud of this, isn't it? We can be proud of this moment, isn't it?
This is what makes us different from other immigrants. It's not a competition, but we was invited to come here to rebuild the country after the war, and we were sold not a lie, but we had a different impression because we had we were not subservient, but because we respected the mother country, people were happy to help. So they came here and they thought in their imagination like the UK would be a certain way, and when they got here, it wasn't, because it wasn't friendly. That's one thing. It was dark and grey. They maybe thought it'd be just like the Caribbean. It was cold, it was damp, people looked different, the customs were different, and as we all know, they weren't welcome. It was difficult for people to find places to stay. People were rejected. No blacks, no Irish, no dogs, and all of that. So they had to form communities, and when one person got a house from a good landlord, maybe 9 people moved in, or 2 or 3 families moved in, just so they could have an address, so they could get a wage, so they could go to work and save some money, so that they can then find a property, and then they would help people come over and do the same. So it was a community thing. And now we've spoken a lot about culture, but I think some of the times what's missing when we see the negatives is community, because community is there, and we spoke about many things that are positive today that involve community. But that's what we had, and we should be proud, like you said, because we was like, we took a lot of the bullets, not literally bullets, but like when I look at other immigrant communities that come over and they get put in a particular place which is diverse, I know that one of the first, if not most of the time, one of the first communities that were there was the Windrush community, and we had to show people we're not gonna be walked over, and we're actually gonna get your respect. And sometimes there was riots, there was race riots, but a lot of the times we came in and we were accepted because of what we did, because we created industries for people, markets, you know. They had the food maybe that our matriarchs wanted, you know, the yams and the provisions and all of that sort of stuff. And then the male, maybe, you know, they set up, you know, their own businesses, or they worked on public transport, and they got to know the people and stuff like that. So we integrated quite well. And yeah, we've had some difficult moments, like you said, some you know, it's still up to this day, you know, there's
up to this day, come on, yeah,
never accept it. But one thing they have to say about our culture is it gets adopted, and their children, like you said earlier, you know, when we were younger, it was just us in Caribbean restaurants, you know. There was other real types of restaurants. Now, because children are used to diverse cultures, now other cultures are be able to form restaurants, you know. there's more African restaurants now than I can ever remember, because their culture's thriving. Afro beats, every kid's listening to that.
Yes.
You know? That's not just in this country, around the world. That's massive, you know. So all these racists, all these people that can moan and chat nonsense, they can't deny that they're dying breed, right? But we still got to deal with politics. We still got to deal with governments and foreign policy and stuff like that. All that's really subtle, like visas and not letting any more people in and all of that sort of control. But nah, take it back to the Windrush, man. We've culturally changed this country. You know, it's a great way to sort of end it, because we are talking about the culture and the Windrush culture. You'd have, what would this country look like? I remember a lady saying like all the clothes are like grey and brown and white, and like you could tell a West Indian because they had like red. They'd wear like more of the colors they see in their environment, the fruit, the flowers, the sea. So they wear blues and bright colors and stuff like that in the summer. And like she said, that fashion never existed in England. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it's interesting. You know, we bought that, we bought color, we bought radiance, but the music, the food, you know, can't deny it. Like we spoke about the fashion, the way we dress, we make things cool. People want to be us, people want to dress like us, speak like us. You know, you got one idiot, you know, who's saying he's 1% Jamaican and all of that. Like he's trying to fool himself. Like he's trying to get, you know, he's trying to be something. Like that's maybe an edge case. Not everybody is like him, but there's something about elements of our culture that people want and they're attracted to, men and women, you know. So,
and we should embrace that. We should embrace that.
Yeah, it starts with the Windrush, and it's a good thing because it's helped, like I said, bring other cultures in. It's helped other cultures feel like, oh, like London is multicultural, you know. Even within like so-called ethnic cultures, sometimes we do beef. You mentioned the African Caribbean thing, which isn't a thing anymore. Like, because again, we're not seeing African kids coming to school the first time. People are just used to having loads of kids in their things. So there's no one side versus the other. It's like, why doesn't my school have loads of different kids in it? You know, that's when you'll have problems with racism. But like, that's what we've done. We've actually come in there and everybody can feel comfortable now, because we have to deal with like the riots in the 50s and 60s. Now everybody here can come in, feel comfortable, want to adopt different parts of our culture, which gives us validity sometimes. Not that we're looking for it, but sometimes that gives us validity. Sometimes if other people are eating, I don't know, dirt chicken a lot, maybe companies want to start making it, which we've seen. You know, maybe Jamie Oliver feels he needs to make it. You know? The joke, right? And it'll be other stuff. There's other, you know, there's other things, you know, the music, you know, the sound system culture, the bass, reggae and stuff. And you got to big up Jamaica. A lot of what we're talking about is
influence from them.
Influence, like, you know, there are older cousins in the Caribbean, you know, big cousins, you know, but they came over here and they rep that because, like I said, there's mostly Jamaicans on the Windrush, right? So their culture, it's only a small island, you know, they don't like that term sometimes, but it is. When you look at the maps, it's only a small island. It's 1.8 million, but not just in this country, around the world, culturally, it's just a creator and a gatekeeper of trends and influence. So now we've got a lot to be proud of in the UK, man. Definitely, like the way this country is it's in a better state, not just because our parents worked in the hospitals and public transport, trains, factories, manufacturing to build the country up, but it's in a better position because you can't fool people anymore. You can't all this Great Britain and Rule Britannia. No, people from all over the world are here, and you get to realize the truth. And you can't say, "Oh, we're better than them," and all of that, which is where you get a lot of ignorance and hate, which unfortunately people in less diverse areas still got. But it will matter of time when people start to spread out. And you're going to have the same thing where you're going to have problems with racism and whatever. And that's why it's difficult. You know, someone said to me yesterday, I need to leave this country. I couldn't even reply to him because I was thinking, I'd love to, you know, but there's a part of me that I don't want to because of what the Windrush went through. They didn't do all of that just for us to go.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that's my thoughts on it anyway.
Yeah, man. I totally agree with your sentiments and everything. Do you know what I mean? I'm proud of what our parents have achieved, coming to coming to this country. You know, there's a lot of positive things that we can gauge from the black community in itself, also from other communities as well, because you know we've got the Asian community, we've got the Arabs, we've got the Colombians, we've got so many different communities that have integrated their culture with us as well, and we've mixed the cultures all together and something like a melting pot. But before
Yeah.
we drop off on a big up Tone's coffee shop as well, if you want to talk about culture, Tone's coffee shop, yeah, he's got it all, isn't it? Tone's got everything. He's got the culture locked in. He's got walks of all life, sitting down eating coffee. I mean, drinking coffee. You can go into his store, his shop. I might be speaking to a scientist one day. Next day I'm speaking to a rapper. Next day I'm speaking to like an entrepreneur or something like that. So we've got to big up Tony as well, because he is someone that I would say is the culture. It's not a lot of these other guys that have been negative and stuff like that. Tony is someone that definitely reps the culture.
Yeah, for real, man. Big up Tones. Be good to check him out. There might be something with him in the future in terms of like a live from the coffee shop.
Yeah, we're gonna get some guys on here, because the first thing I went into on Instagram messages, and everyone and someone goes, "Who's on your podcast today?" So it's like they're almost telling us what they want, So they want to see probably people that come on that are that reputable or something like that. But we're gonna build up with our people first on here, because we've got a lot of probably artists and streetwear owners, entrepreneurs and stuff that we work with already. So we're going to get them on first and just have a general chit chat,
Yeah,
and
yeah, man. It's about stories. It's not always about names as well.
yeah, exactly.
You could hear the same story because someone's a big name. They've been on 5 or 6 pods and whatnot. It's the same story, and it's about.
Bro, sorry, bro. Sorry to. You're gonna know who this is. David Lawrence, former England Gloucester fast bowler, has died at the age of 61.
Ah, that's sad, man. Yeah, I know who that guy is. Yeah, some illness.
I remember him.
Motor neuron disease or something like that.
Disease. Oh.
Yeah. He was in. I think they used to call him Sid. Yeah, he's a nice guy, man. I mean, not that I met him, but I've seen him on TV. One of the old school, one of the first black players to play for England as well. I think after Devon Malcolm and the first one, I think he would have been the third. So he's actually, these are elements of the culture that mean something to me. If your parents are from, I don't know, Syria or Afghanistan, but you feel part of the culture, then yeah, cricket probably isn't your thing. Although Afghanistan definitely is, but you wouldn't know a David Sid Lawrence. But man, sad news. May rest in peace. That illness is not nice. Not that any illness is, but obviously when it's your brain and your motor skills, you need care, and it's difficult for the family. It's not a great situation, but I know that they were raising a lot of money. I think his former club had a day for him recently where they all wore pink or something, and all the fans wore pink, and they raised a lot of money. So hopefully that will help the family and help the research into the into the disease. But yeah, that's kind of sad. But yeah, we're definitely going to try and get some guests on here, man. And
also some content as well, like reviews on, what's going on, like probably do some clips, but we're just like looking at, speaking about, things that's going on in the culture as well. Because I just seen something from Bouncer. The police took Unknown T's 225 grand chain, but that's for another day. That's
Yeah,
another day.
I saw that as well. But you know what you just said as well, like we can review a lot of some of the things we can do is like that we were doing on the blog is just reviewing some of the film content that maybe goes under the radar. There's always something to talk about. There's never a dull week in the culture. There's never probably a dull day in the culture. We know that. We don't always need to talk about what everybody else is talking about, but sometimes you might have to, because you might need to put. I want to be like the guy that's got the calm head and not in the heat, and hopefully, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but
we will get drawn out. Don't worry about that. We will get drawn out. But as far as I'm concerned, is it all publicity is good publicity? I don't know.
Yeah, I've got thick skin, bro. Like I said, I grew up above racists. So
you grew up on doubles as well,
really say to me, particularly when you're hiding behind a camera, that's gonna get me. Like, you can't call me a snitch. You can't insult me personally, because none of you know me. So you can just say nonsense. Like, you know, I could tell you a story. I won't tell you a story because I don't want to.
Next time.
Keep
the stories, bro, because I'm sure a lot of these guys are gonna want to hear the stories, man. I know you're a man that grew up on punch of cream, and do you know what I mean? All that doubles and rotis, and you know what I mean, and all them things there as well, man. So big up to you anyway. But Monte, we're gonna wrap it up now. It's been like, bro, it's been over 2 hours, bro. I can't believe it.
I mean, you know, and what's scary is my maths ain't good, because I thought, oh yeah, 2 hours, that'll be like 12. But, you know, look at the time now.
It's unpredictable. It's very unpredictable, bro. Because unless you know, if you limit to an hour, then you limit to an hour. But because this is our first stream, I think we wanted to get a lot of our ideas over to the people. We also wanted to introduce ourselves as well, because this is the first ever podcast we've ever done together. So, you know, I mean, it's been good. But listen, people, this is the first time I'm asking right at the end of the show, make sure you smash the like button. If you're new, make sure you subscribe. You're gonna have to get used to saying that, Monte.
Nah, but it'll roll off the tongue, man. You know, you gotta like, share, subscribe, comment, man. That's what it's about.
All of that. But people, this will be up on our website as well. I've actually put it on the website already. So people, if we're gonna anyway. I'm not even telling you what we're going to be doing next anyway. But listen, people, just keep your eyes open for more content coming your way. But anyway, people, we are going to enjoy the rest of the sunshine on Sunday, and we are out. Peace.